Is that me? All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our book club. This is the Forever Young Adult Book Club, and this month is Pride Month, and so we are going to be talking about some of our favorite books that fit with the themes of Pride and LGBTQ books. And so I thought a nice way to think about that was this idea of mirrors and windows, and this phrase of mirrors and windows is starting to kind of permeate through people who read books and teach in schools. And it was originally introduced by a gal named Emily Sile for the National Seed Project. And a mirror is a story that reflects your own culture and helps you build your identity. And a window is a resource that offers you a view into someone else's experience. So it's critical that kids kind of have both of those experiences. And in order to learn about themselves, they have to learn about other people. That's the way it works. And that's why mirrors and windows are both needed. But sometimes we need to learn about ourselves or others. When we begin the journey like our book club is doing, though, to bring books to other people, we don't just need to think mirrors and windows are cute. It's critical. It's a way to build human connections and build relationships through books. When in my time as a high school librarian, book talking was always my favorite thing, and I would do a large group book talk, and then individual students would kind of come up to me, trickle up over on the side because they were afraid to ask questions at a large group. And once a student approached me, and she kind of looked both ways and quietly said, "Don't take this the wrong way. I know it sounds weird, but because I'm like a middle-class white girl, but without any real problems, but I really, really like those books where characters have like problems." So she wanted a window. She wanted to learn about other people. And another time after a book talk, I grouped books by themes. I shared, chick lit books and dystopian and love and romance, etc. And in the love and romance pile of books, I added in a book that was a gay love story as well as a straight love story. And nobody got upset. They all counted as romance stories. In fact, a student approached me afterward and said, "I want to learn more about those romance books you talked about." And I said, "Oh, did you mean this kind of romance book or this kind of romance book?" And he pointed to the gay love story. And I said, "All right." So we walked over and we looked at 4 or 5 more examples or choices and found the book that he wanted to leave with. So I think he wanted a mirror. Another time, one of my regular library users and under the radar Too Cool for School male kids came in, and he pulled me to an empty side of the library and he said, "I have really liked every book you've recommended to me lately, but I need to talk to you about something. I'm not gay. And all the books you've recommended have had gay characters, and I don't know if you're trying to tell me something." And I wasn't, and I had no clue, and I didn't think he was gay, and I didn't realize all the books had gay characters. And so we kind of both let out a sigh of relief and said I wasn't trying to do any therapy for him, but he liked the books and he took another one. So as book lovers, as book sharers, as book pushers, ours is not a place of judgment. Ours is a place of acceptance, and we must engage in the task of helping readers find mirrors and find windows. Ours is a place of letting every reader feel seen and validated, and that means we need to know what books that represent all types of people and all types of interests, and be open to believing that every reader deserves to find the right book at the right time. So LGBTQ books are not just about finding books for LGBTQ people. It's about finding good stories for all readers. But mirrors are critical experiences for these students, and it's absolutely necessary. And that's why we're dedicating this month to that. Every reader deserves to find a book that they love. So as we launch our book talks for Pride Month this month in our book club, we can celebrate around all of the people and hope to find representation for every reader in your life. And my book is Will Grayson, Will Grayson. So my book, Will Grayson, Will Grayson, is co-authored by John Green and David Levithan, and they take turns alternating chapters of the story because there's 2 boys named Will Grayson who don't know each other, whose lives eventually intersect by the end of the book. And you learn one of the Will Graysons is straight, but definitely not without problems. And one of the Will Graysons is gay and has great friends and funny friends who take you on a journey of what it means to have an awesome friendship. This is a book that is, I think, a story about friendship. It's funny. It'll make you laugh out loud. And I think it's really hard to write funny books, and these guys do an awesome job of it. And it also includes characters who are gay, and you learn about what it means to be a good friend and what it means to be a sucky friend and how you accept somebody, either way. So I really recommend Will Grayson by David Levithan and John Green, but do note it is alternating voices. And I think it was halfway through the book before I realized that what was happening, and that was kind of confused. So if you know that from the start, it makes it a little bit easier to read. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to my friend Adrienne Rice.
Okay, I read both my books on Kindle, so I'm going to present my screen to show you which book I have first. Hopefully you got that up. Okay. Oops. Let me see. Okay. The first book that I'm going to talk about is I Wish You All the Best by Mason Deaver. I can't adequately describe how much I love this book. It's written by a non-binary author, and it has a non-binary main character, and it brings crucial representation to the world. While some facets of the LGBTQ community have become more prevalent in books, especially YA books, characters that identify as non-binary are seldom seen. In I Wish You All the Best, Ben comes out to their parents and is abruptly kicked out. After finding their estranged sister who moved away years ago, Ben ends up living with her and her husband, who is a high school teacher. Of course, I love that part. After enrolling in a new school, Ben meets Nathan. Nathan, sweet, funny, wonderful Nathan. Ben and Nathan become friends, and they both work toward a happier life. Ben begins seeing a therapist who specializes in LGBTQ kids and eventually takes strides to overcoming their traumatic outing experience and toward kind of eventually expressing their feelings for Nathan. This is a coming of age story like no other. I Wish You All the Best brings you into conversations that you may be uncomfortable with or just not know about, but it's conversations that need to take place. There's always more to know and seek to understand. Gender's fluid. Friends are the family you choose, and pronouns are really important. This book is heartbreaking, joyous, magical, and pure, all wrapped up in a big purple and yellow bow. You need to read this book, like now. Find a way to get this book in your hands. It's great. It's awesome. And now I'm going to turn it over to Katie.
Hi, everybody. I'm Katie. Welcome back to this week's episode of Forever Young Adult. I take a page out of Heather's book sometimes in that I try to share my love of books and share my collection because, quite frankly, I have a ton of books. And so I try to share them with school and the librarians at school and friends and all that good stuff. So I shared this book out with my librarian, and I am going to pull up the image of this book. So my book this week is We Set the Dark on Fire by Talor K. Mejia. At the Medio School for Girls, distinguished young women are trained for one of two roles in their polarized society. Depending on her specialization, a graduate will one day run a husband's household or raise his children, but both are promised a life of comfort and luxury. So our main character's name is Daniela. Daniela is selected to run her husband's household, and I think the other girl's name is Carmen, and she is selected to run the same husband's family. So they work together, but they're enemies at this school. Daniela gets into this prestigious school. Her parents forge her documents so that she can get into this school. And so life goes on. She's at the house. She's learning what it means to run a household and what it means to run a household and how to live with Carmen, who is also getting more attention than she expected. So as we go through the novel, we start to see some civil unrest in the city that they live in, and relationships develop, and the ending is a bit of a surprise. I don't want to tell you any more than that because it would be a definite giveaway. I chose this book as part of a duology, and I chose this book because I didn't like it. I chose this book in our book club thus far. We've talked a lot about books that we love. And like, if you've seen last week's episode, I was a bumbling idiot because the books I picked were ones that I so love. But I think it's important to choose books to talk about that maybe I didn't like, but you might like, or a young reader who would really enjoy this book. There is romance, there's fighting, there's bisexuality in this, there's revolution. The ending feels really abrupt to me, and I didn't quite care for any of the characters. I didn't feel any empathy towards them. But you may enjoy this book too, or you may have a reader who would love to see a book about relationships, or if they want a connection to Latin American culture or bisexuality. I don't know. But there you go. I would give this book probably 3 out of 5 stars. Maybe you'll give it the 5 out of 5. So We Set the Dark on Fire, Talor K. Mejia, and I'm going to pass it over to my friend Amanda.
Hi, everybody. So the book that I chose this week is The Princess and the Fangirl. And a few weeks ago, Katie had done Geekerella. And I think that we've all established that we are giant nerds. And we have our fandoms and we love them. And Geekerella is actually, it's what Ashley Poston has done is created a world around the Geekerella book. And so the third installment is coming out. It's called Bookish and the Beast, based on Beauty and the Beast, clearly. And this is the second book. And what's really cool is they're not necessarily intertwined to the point where you have to read them in order, but they're intertwined to the point where you start to see characters that you love from the previous book. And you get to see that character development. You see them from different perspectives. And I think perspectives is what this book comes back to, is how people see the world and how our experiences change us. And so The Princess and the Fangirl focuses on Jessica Stone, who plays Amara from Geekerella, and who we've met, but she was kind of like the villain, not necessarily the villain, because I would say that we had the stepsisters in the first book, but she wasn't a well-liked actress. And she plays the character of Amara, which is very well loved in this fandom that we've come to love in Geekerella. And this book comes from her perspective and her understanding that even though she doesn't feel a connection to the character of Amara, everybody else does. And I'm not going to give away any spoilers. However, I will say this. It's a love story on many, many levels. And probably one of my favorite parts of the book is at one point, Jessica Stone comes out from the con and she sees, because if you remember, Geekerella was all about this this convention around Starfield. And so she comes out from the convention and she sees a plethora of fans dressed up as Princess Amara from different backgrounds, different races, different sexual backgrounds, different everything. And how beautiful it is that all these individuals connected with the same character, but they all came from different backgrounds and perspectives. And I think that that's a really important lesson for all of us. And so I would highly recommend this, and I'm looking forward to the next installment of this. So with that, I'm going to send it over to Steve. Thanks, guys.
Hi, guys. The first book I'm going to talk about tonight is Juliet Takes a Breath by Gabby Rivera. Now, sometimes we judge books by covers. Part of it, I got to say, because look at this cover, right? I saw this cover and I had a feeling I was going to like this book. She's got the shaved head and it's kind of punk rock, and it says, this book is effing outstanding. Roxane Gay says that. So I had a good feeling about this book, and I was not let down in the least. It's a story of Juliet Milagros Ponante. She's a Puerto Rican girl from Bronx, New York, when she's 19, and she comes out to her parents and her family basically the night before she's going to Portland, Oregon for a summer internship with a writer, a feminist writer. She reads this book by this feminist writer, and that basically becomes her hero. And she's inspired to be a writer, and she lands this internship there. And it's basically the story of Juliet's summer when she was 19 and in Oregon. It's like her coming of age story. And I love this book. I couldn't put it down. I read it in a day. I just couldn't stop reading. I just read it all the way through. It was so good. I think what makes it good is Gabby Rivera's just authentic and brutal, like punk rock voice to her experience. So it is semi-autobiographical. So, she was 19 when she came out and was figuring out her identity and all that stuff. And this is a story of Juliet doing the same kind of thing. So it takes place in 2003 at the same time in Gabby's life when she was going through some of these things. And she fictionalized this great story of Juliet figuring out her identity and stuff. And I don't want to give away too much about the story, but a big thing to it is she has all this adoration for the feminist writer, but as she meets other people within the queer community, she starts to learn how to form her own identity, but also critically question the critical and the lens that people are using. So what I really enjoyed about this book is just a great young adult book that gives you insight into feminism and how intersectionality plays into that. Not just gender, but sexuality, race, and identity, and how those things cross point. Just an outstanding book, funny, hilarious, poignant, like touching, tender, all that stuff. I'm going to pass it to Adrian for the next book.
Thank you. Okay, for my second book, I can get this to work. My second book is Sawkill Girls by Claire Legrand. Sawkill Girls is a cross between dark fantasy and gothic horror. I really enjoyed it. It's lyrical. There are tons of quotes that I underline, but the prose is just the icing on the top because the characters are the heart and soul of the book, and they're really developed. 3 girls form the heart of the story. There's Marion, who just moved to Sawkill Island. She's a steady sort, the rock for her mother and sister since her father died in a car accident. She's a worrier too. The reader ends up wanting nothing but the best for her. On top of somehow being gentle and resolute and determined, she's also plus size and bisexual, representation I was not expecting, but I was absolutely delighted to see. Then there's Val, who I absolutely hated at first. Admittedly, she's my least favorite of the 3 point of views. I found it harder to relate to and sympathize with her rich blonde princess attitude than Marion or Zoe. However, as the story develops, this character that you start out hating becomes really complex. The layers that peel away end up causing you to view her in a different light. And as the story takes shape, it's amazing. And then there's Zoe. I saved the best for last because she's my favorite. Zoe is biracial. Her father is the small town sheriff on the island, and she's asexual. Zoe is impulsive and furious and compassionate. She's everything I've never seen in another character before. There's an entire facet of her backstory devoted to the frustration and emotional turmoil of not wanting sex, not feeling sexual attraction, and wondering if there's something wrong or broken about her. Putting all 3 girls together, though, was, I think, the triumph of the book. Sawkill Girls is about furious girls who want not just to live, but to thrive. And not only that, they want to have love in their lives. They hunger, and they're angry. Their anger is kind of refreshing. It leaps off the page at you, all the frustration and fear that they feel, and you want nothing more than for them to get what they want. On top of that, the antagonists of the book are so absolutely awful that you feel all the more for the trio. I highly recommend it. I really liked it. And now I'm going to turn it back to Steve.
Okay. Can't believe it's already back to me for my second book. Danuta Petrus, The Stars and the Blackness Between Them. And another great cover. The cover of this book kind of drew me to wanting to read it. And being fascinated by this title, The Stars and the Blackness Between Them. And what is behind the meaning of that title? Well, I won't spoil that for you if you decide to read the book, but one thing I will say about the meaning behind the title is that it ties into something that we've been talking about with a lot of these books tonight. A lot of them seem to be character-driven, or whether or not you identify with the characters in the book or not, with it, however you identify, it goes back to that perspective. So I didn't like this book as much as I liked Juliet Takes a Breath. However, I think this book gets an A for its perspective. It's a story of two young Black girls from different worlds who end up meeting and then forming a connection. One, Audra, is from the Port of Spain, Trinidad, and the other girl, Maybelle, is from Minneapolis, USA. So it's an interesting story, and it switches chapters from like the point of view of both girls. And then you see how their stories, there's a reason that Audra has moved back to the U.S. to live with her dad because of an incident that happened in Trinidad. And she's upset at first, but not used to the American culture and stuff. But then she forms this bond with Maybelle. And then if you read the excerpt about what this book is about, I kind of thought is this going to be another sort of cancer love story? And that's part of it, but really it's a book about these two different Black girls forming a bond and but what they have in the bond, the thing that they have in common is discovering their own identity. So I thought this book really gives you insight into both those cultures, especially the Caribbean culture, which I don't really know a lot about, just the way she talks. It's written in her accent and everything. So this is a good book for perspectives. And with that being said, we're going to take it to Katie, the closer, to give us our final thoughts this week.
Okay. Yay, we made it to another end of our episodes. We thank you guys so much for keeping tuning in, keeping watching us, keeping up with our books. I only wanted to say that I think going along with the way Heather so beautifully started our meeting today about our obligation as readers and educators to help provide windows and mirrors for our students in the literature that we enjoy, the literature we don't enjoy, the literature we have in our classrooms, the literature we have access to. We as readers also need windows and mirrors for ourselves. We pick a lot of books for our own personal enjoyment that either they feel like characters to us, or we see ourselves in those characters, or it's a world we want to look into, or it's a metaphor for our world. But our windows only go so far. Our mirrors or our bubbles only go so far. So if you, the viewer, want to help us expand our bubbles, give us new windows, give us new mirrors to look into, please, we want new suggestions. We are always on Goodreads and Amazon and everywhere on the internet looking for new books to read for book club, in the hopes that we can expand and educate ourselves more about different points of view and different people and different backgrounds and different parts of the world. I think everybody this week at least read a book from a different part of the world, or people that are not like them. They got a window with the book that they chose this week. So if you have a book suggestion for us, or better yet, if you want to join our reckless brigade of book readers and nerds, please do. We are probably the most welcoming book club ever. We love and we want new people, and we want you to join us. So over in the chat, I think you can see it. If not, I'll tell you out loud. You can drop us a comment on Instagram. You can drop us a comment on Twitter. Both of those are at 4ever.ya. You can also go visit our new shiny website at 4, again, the number 4, everyoungadult.com. We have a form there. You can drop us a suggestion. You can fill out the email. You can call us if you know us and you have our phone numbers. However you want to get in contact with us to be a part of this ever-growing book club, branching out into the world of YA, wherever it may take us. So hit us up, Instagram, Twitter. We're not cool enough to have Snapchat or TikTok, but you can find us on Facebook as well. And with that, that concludes this week's episode of Forever Young Adult. We will catch you on June 18th for more LGBTQ Pride novels.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye. Keep reading.
Bye, everyone. Bye.